Hello, my name is Devin Larson. I'm here with Jason Peterson. We're here with the Young Professionals Committee, and we're doing our segment on business development, business management, and other skills. Jason has his own company called Bethlehem Land Surveying. We're here to talk about your business and how you started, and if anybody else was interested in starting a business, if you had any advice for them.
Yeah, I have a ton of advice. Could talk on it for hours. Um, Due to the weather, maybe we should continue this conversation back at the office. It is starting to come down. Finish boxing up the equipment, and we'll just meet back at the office.
Yeah, we'll head back at the office, and we'll pick it up there.
All right.
Thanks. All right, so we're back at the office with Mr. Peterson here. So Jason, where would you start building your own company?
The first thing you would do is have a plan for your business model. What sort of jobs you want to take on, what sort of equipment you're going to need, what your working capital is going to be, and then just set up some sort of model so you can have like a checklist of how you want to approach things. So the first step in starting your own business would be going to the Department of State, filling out your application to incorporate. So you go through that whole process. Take the guidelines that they give you. So you'll have to do your advertising with 2 newspapers, and then eventually you'll get your articles of incorporation, which would allow you to open up for business. And at that time, I would really focus on your advertising. Get your name out there so clients know that you exist and they can give you a call, and that's when things really start to happen. That's when, once you get your first phone call, you'll realize whether or not you've set up your business properly or thoroughly enough. So I know this is going to lead into a much larger discussion. So that's where you would start, is planning out what sort of clients you want, how big your projects are, and everything that you would need to complete those tasks. I know that as a surveyor, having business skills second, we can tend to focus on all the technical issues of surveying and completing a job and producing a product. But on the business side, that's where either if you have a mentor or just figuring it out, that's where some of the more difficult things can lie. It's if you've been surveying long enough to have gotten your license and then venture out on your own, then obviously you have the technical skills to go out and complete a boundary survey and then produce a map and present it to your client or town board or whatever. It's the running of the business that tends to be the thing that we put second. And if it's one thing that I have learned, is that it should be equal to the technical side or at the forefront of it.
Very nice. Yeah. You touched on it briefly there. You were saying that you needed some startup capital. Is it something that you would need a whole lot of money, do you think, to start up a business? Or is it something that you can do with a little bit of capital? Or what would you give some advice to some of our would-be business operators?
So whichever company you've come from, you'd probably have a set of equipment that you're familiar using. And for simplicity, you probably want to just stick with that same equipment. You're familiar with it. So there's not going to be this learning curve of setting up your own data collector, because sometimes when you're at a company, you didn't have to set up that data collector. You didn't have to set up the AutoCAD with all of its templates and all of its menu bars and toolbars and all these tabs. You didn't have to do that. Once you've started your business, that's the stuff that you're going to have to try to figure out. All your templates for your AutoCAD, all your licensing for your AutoCAD, whether or not you're going to use AutoCAD. Maybe you're going to use Carlson. So as far as working capital, the amount of money you would need to purchase the equipment, and then the amount of money that you would expect to draw as your salary. So you have your own living expenses and the stuff that you're familiar with, that you've developed from the company that you worked at. You have a certain lifestyle, so then you have a certain amount of money that you're going to have to make to maintain that lifestyle. So you'd have to factor in how much you're going to pay yourself, how much is it for all this equipment, and then everything that goes along with that piece of equipment. So your truck, your metal locator, the flagging, the nails, the tack ball, every little thing you are now going to pay for. So my advice as far as working capital would probably be a bare minimum of $50,000 to have as the amount that you're going to need to purchase your equipment or finance your equipment, and then pay yourself until somebody does call your office, and that's when things start to roll. And then we're going to get into the invoicing and how long it takes for payment to come in after you've produced that product.
Yeah. How long do you think it took you to become profitable? Obviously, you don't see a return right away. Did you say that you were profitable within the first year or two, or how long do you think it would take for a small business to really get off the ground and really start thriving and making some money?
The theory behind that is it takes about 3 years to be established, and if you're able to make it beyond 3 years, you can consider yourself successful and you've made it. Now, obviously, there are things that you can't see, like a pandemic, for instance, or a recession or what have you. But if you've made it 3 years, then you can consider yourself successful. Now, as far as profitability, it depends on what sort of financing package you had at the beginning. So if you didn't purchase your equipment outright and you financed it, then you're going to be paying that sort of stuff off. For me, when I started, I didn't actually have a plan to open my own business. I was let go from a company and basically said, I guess I'm starting my own business.
Mm-hmm.
I have my license. That's all I need. I got a truck. I have my license. I'll get some equipment. So it just so happens that I was able to get my hands on some demo equipment that was being sold at a discounted price, but I still had to max out 3 credit cards, and I did have those paid off within that first year. So I would consider myself profitable after that first year. But then you start to take on more expenses if you want to expand, bringing on employees, upgrading your equipment, getting more equipment. So, with just, you can do a boundary survey with a total station, a rod, a backsite, and your data collector and your AutoCAD. But elevation certificates require having a GPS. The GPS is something that everybody's moving to, so when you upgrade it to that becomes another expense, and then the next thing comes out, and then you got to have that, and then the next thing comes out, and you got to have that. So, long story short, about a year before I considered myself profitable, and then about 3 years before I considered myself established and kind of just started to plane off and knew where I was going after about 3 years.
Very good. Yeah. So when starting your business, there's obviously a lot of forms that you're going to have to go through. Can you kind of touch on what it was like, and did you have any help going through these forms, or did you have to figure out by yourself with the state?
Well, it was 10 years ago, so I don't recall every single form that I had to fill out, but you have to go to the education department, and you have to go over to the Department of State. You have to file your articles of incorporation, and all of that stuff costs money. So if we're talking about working capital, that's the sort of stuff that you have to factor in, is how much your time is worth. So obviously, going backwards to touch on the working capital, make sure that you have factored in how much time, what your time is worth. So the time to do all that, the time to go down to the clerk's office, the time to go down to the Department of State, back and forth between those two organizations, the education department and back over to the Department of State. That can take 3-4 days to get all these forms filled out. I know, I mean, it was 10 years ago, but maybe things have gotten a little bit easier, more streamlined, more online. But it can take a good week to 2 weeks before you have all of your forms filled out, applications filled out, and everything submitted. And I did not have any help doing it. I figured it all out on my own, or ask questions when I'm down at the window receiving my form. Now, where do I go with this? You go, sometimes it's in the same building, down a couple floors, and then back up, or whatever. But I really didn't have a mentor to guide me through that sort of process. It really was, I guess I'm starting my own business, and I figured it out all by myself, or the help at the window.
Yeah, you kind of got to jump into it with both feet, huh? You can't really one foot in, 1 foot out. You really got to go all into it.
Especially if you're gonna be a sole proprietor. If you have a partner, then you can figure out things together. But when you really didn't plan on starting the business, then you're really, you're, like you said, jumping in with both feet and figuring it out. You really don't have any choice other than to figure it out.
Yeah. When starting your business, there we had talked about a little bit about marketing. What would you do you have any advice to somebody who's starting their business? Would you go for using a phone book, or would you try to make your own website, or how do you think you would advertise? How did you advertise when you first started, and do you have any advice moving forward with the modern age?
Well, it was 10 years ago. So what I did, it was a phone book, but it was a dual package, phone book and website. And I had started in the middle of the year. So the new phone books didn't come out until January. So it really was slow going that first half year of July of 2012. My advice would be website, and do mailers, do a trifold brochure and mail it out to realtors, fence companies, construction companies, builders in your local area. Have business cards printed up and tack them to the clerk's office corkboard, or any sort of restaurant that you go into. They, at the front door, they usually have this contractor's corkboard with handyman or realtors or whatever. Just put them up there. Lettering the side of your vehicle goes a long way. I had phone calls from people from the highway. I saw you on the highway.
So you'd want to get your name out any way you can.
Any way that you can, I would definitely get it out there. And I had great feedback from people that I did mailers to, especially title companies. It can go a long way with even the sort of stationery that you use, but reaching out and letting people know that you exist, it is just another it's another direction that they can go, because those sorts of companies always need surveyors. And uh, if you own your own business, or being as being at a survey company, you'll know exactly how busy surveyors are. It just does not seem to be getting any slower. So there is a high demand for surveyors. So getting your name out there, it, your phone will ring.
Yeah.
Which, just to touch on that, don't use your cell phone on your business cards or any of your letterhead in your advertising. Have an office phone, because it will ring on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah, so there's your pro tip for you. So now that you have an operating business that's running, you know, one of the things that you might want to consider doing is partnering with other firms on bigger projects. You know, can you walk us through how if you would recommend doing that, or if you would steer away from doing that, or would you handle partnering and teaming with projects and getting certain clients?
Well, when you do partner with another firm, you really do have to be extremely you have to be firm on what it is that you are going to provide them, and what you expect in return, as far as payment and timelines for what it is that you can do. What is your ability in the field? Are they asking you for something that you just can't deliver it that fast? It's, sometimes when somebody reaches out to you, let's just say it's an architectural firm, they have a client who needs something, and 9 times out of 10, coming to the surveyor, that's when they found out that they need survey support. So you're the last one that is going to find out that you're needed. And they found out at the last hour. They went to submit, the town says, okay, now we need it surveyed. Or some other agency said, you have to have a surveyor on board. So now they're going to reach out to you, and now they may require you to act a little bit more aggressive and expeditious than you have availability to do. So being very mindful of your capabilities, being very mindful of your own schedule, and somehow factoring in your own personal time. I do not recommend, I don't recommend you losing sight on you need your own time to maintain some domestic tranquility. We'll just call it that, because you not being home can be a big deal for your significant other.
Oh yeah, and that goes back to the cell phone. You know, you gotta have your own phone number.
Goes right back to the cell phone, and people reaching out to you and needing something, and quite possibly, because who we are, you want to please that client, because you want to keep that client, because they are a good client. So you may go above and beyond and work a Saturday and a Sunday just to make sure that they don't miss a deadline. But
I think that would be an important thing for any would-be business operators, is you can't ever really take a vacation. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that. I do use this joke that a farmer gets more vacation than I do. Just when you are starting your business, it's easy to be a little stressed about receivables. So getting as much work as you possibly can, and sometimes when you're slow, it can be a little frustrating. It can you can start to get a little down on yourself and wonder if it's going to pick up. But I assure you that once that phone rings and you've delivered a product and that client likes you, that phone will continue to ring. Your caps are in the ground, so now somebody's going to see your caps. Um, the door knockers that you're going to get from Nice Apples and leave on people's doorknobs, that's going to have your business card on there. People are going to call you. Everybody needs a surveyor, and if anybody's purchasing a home, they're always going to find out at the last minute. That's when they're going to find out that they need a surveyor, and that's when things really start to get a little hectic.
While we're talking about you managing your time, at what point in the development of your business did you realize that you would need employees? And at what point did you start hiring? How comfortable were you with being able to keep them employed? I know when it gets slow, some people worry about, am I going to be able to retain the number of people that I have employed right now? How did you navigate that?
Very carefully. I always wanted to get larger. I knew my own physical abilities, and I know that eventually they will not be the same as they're not the same now as they were 10 years ago. And I know that I will not have the ability to continue to be in the field doing the work that I do into my 60s. Some surveyors do continue to do that. I don't necessarily have a desire to do that. And I do have a military background of carrying a lot of equipment for long distances, so I know that eventually my body will catch up to everything that I have done to it. So I wanted to expand. However, getting office space was always on my mind as another expense. So we converted the basement over to an office, and I suffer from the same dilemma that a lot of survey companies do, where there isn't a huge pool of resources of people looking for work. If somebody's working at a survey company, that survey company should be doing everything they can to retain that person. And then this is going to lead into another conversation about outreach and stuff like that. But anybody that was looking for work, I entertained the idea of hiring them, and having figured out my own business management style and figuring everything out that I did to run the business. That was just another thing that I had to figure out. I didn't know about all the labor laws. I didn't know about the insurance that they may require. I actually came up through surveying. I started surveying in 1996 and didn't start my business in 2012. I had a friend say to me, and it didn't really apply to, he wasn't applying it to surveying, but it was a phrase that stuck with me. And it says, even the most skilled navigator needs to look up from their map every once in a while to notice that the terrain has changed. It just is a different work environment. The employees have different expectations of their employer. What they'll tolerate, what they need, all of that is different than when I came up. So I've had to adapt to a completely different culture of what employees want, what they need to stay, what they need to come on board. So I had to figure out the health insurance, retirement packages for them. It's just something that's always on my mind to go to. Probably, I think it was the last part of your question was that stuff is on my mind all the time. When it gets slow, what am I going to do for them? I am now providing a lifestyle for me personally, for 2 other people. It is on my mind all the time. When the phone doesn't ring, when is it going to ring? If we're slow, I hope it doesn't get much slower. What am I going to do? So, and which all of this is going to get tied back to working capital. How much should I have? So as I expanded, then I need to have a bigger cushion, because when you complete a project and then you invoice, sometimes your terms on payment aren't exactly what you would want, depending on which agency you're dealing with. So 45 days, 60 days, 90 days, or within 21 days of the person you're working for getting paid, which their terms are 90 days. So now you're into 110, 120 days before you get paid for a particular project. So you have to be mindful of all that, and it is it can be very stressful. I've learned to have certain outlets to relieve such stress, but it still weighs on my mind. Providing a nice work environment for my employees and their lifestyle. They have kids. They have futures. It's always on my mind. Yeah.
And yeah, and when you get these employees, you've been touching on it, that you got to pay them. So how do you enjoy payroll, and do you have softwares that can help you with that, or how do you handle payroll?
I do not enjoy payroll. That's the answer. I had to figure that out as well. At the beginning, I had timesheets that we used a scrap piece of paper, made a grid, and then ran copies off, because that is what I thought that I would need to document their hours and get all of that figured out. And then we figured out that that's a lot of paperwork. That's not enough information. And then certain projects came on board that required a little bit more paper trail than the Ditto's timesheet that I was using. So I have an accountant that I send my timesheets to, which are all electronic now through an Excel spreadsheet. I send off. My accountant does it all, and because we have projects that are prevailing wage, and we work in different zones, and there's different rates for different zones and different contributions and what have you. Those are things that I now just notify my accountant, what county do they work in, what rate do they need to be paid, and they make sure that that gets paid. But at the beginning, that was all me with a chart, looking at deductions and logging on the labor site, and then on the income tax, and figuring out if they made this much, I'm supposed to deduct this much, and it was just another thing that I had to figure out. It was stressful the first couple of payrolls when you have employees, but then it starts to become routine, and it gets a little easier, which all goes back to the planning of all of it. Have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you don't have a plan, it can get hectic, and even when you have a well laid out plan, it cannot go exactly to plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you touch on the difference between having, or the importance, I should say, of cash flow and like invoicing and stuff like that? Do you find invoicing hard with people not paying you for your services, and the amount of time it takes to get that cash into your account so that you can pay your employees? Can you kind of touch on the importance of having cash?
So at the beginning, the invoicing was a problem, because as is laid out in this pocket guide to business for engineers and surveyors, we tend to focus on the technical side of our industry and put the business second. And that's exactly what I did, is made sure that I had all of this done, and I submitted the map, got it to the attorney, and the terms with the attorneys were payment at closing. Sometimes they'll call you for a rush. You will rush out there. You will rush and get them their product. the closing is delayed because of inspection, because of the change of the lender, or they didn't meet this qualification. So your rush now turns into they haven't closed in 3 months. With when it's just yourself, it's not as big a worry. But when you have employees, you start to what we say, try to shake the trees, see who's ready to pay, who look at your board of non-payers and see what the issue is. But cash was a big problem at the beginning, and then through classes at the conference, talking to other surveyors, venting basically to other surveyors that own their own business, and you pick up on little things that they do. 50% deposit. We do not deploy to the field until we received an initialed proposal and a signed proposal, which will turn into the contract once it's signed, and have received the 50% deposit. That secures their position on the schedule, and it allows you to have some working capital to go out and do that initial search, collection, and then drafting, and then submittal to wait for the final payment. So that was something that took years to learn, and it's been quite fruitful. It also serves as a reminder to the client that they have already paid. You might as well finish it off and get this product. So we don't set corners in the ground until we receive the final payment, and we do not deliver that map until we receive final payment, unless it's to an attorney and we have a professional relationship with that attorney.
Yeah, very good. You were talking about proposals a little bit. Did you feel like there was a steep learning curve to proposals, or how was your proposals in the beginning versus how your proposals are now? Was there a big learning curve of how you wrote proposals, or?
So I did do a lot of online research on writing proposals. When you're a project manager at another company, they, from what I've heard, send their project managers to specific classes that will teach such things as writing proposals and scheduling and basically project management, which these are all things that I picked up by myself. But just to go back with that previous comment about me reaching out to other surveyors, sometimes I would reach out and just ask them a question about their proposals, or somehow one cycles through my office because it's in a file from a surveyor that used to work on that project, and now I'm taking it over. Now I have their proposal. I start to develop my own language, and I start to copy and paste. I like this about theirs. I like this about this contract, and I'll start to incorporate those and make them fit my business, because I run my business a little bit different than another larger company that has departments. So the language that I'm selecting fits how I run my business. So the terms of the payment, what I will provide, what's not included in the proposal. You start to pick up on those things when you actually work with another firm. You may get the contract that engineer sent that client, and you look at it and like, oh, this is really well worded. Look at all the things that they're not including. So I need to be very clear on the things that I'm not going to include, and then also be very clear about what I understood my client needing from me. So if you're not clear on it, then there can be a little bit of ambiguity when they thought that they were receiving a certain thing, and if you don't have something to come back and point to and say, no, see, I specifically said I was not doing that. That is not included. We can issue change orders and get a new task order put together, and I can give you a quote to provide such a thing. But yes, that was something that I found not so much difficult, but definitely I thought I was behind the curve on that one, and I was grateful that I had um, a couple of mentors that did provide their contracts and their proposals, and then I was just able to incorporate my own style to it. And now I make sure that even anybody that's calling me from a, a mortgage survey or a survey to install a fence or any large municipality that needs something, they all get a 3-page proposal that's outlining everything that we understand that we're supposed to provide, a background of what that document is that we're going to submit, and then I also include an example of the final product. You will receive a map that looks similar to this, but it will be your property. So
All right. So you got the jobs, you have the proposals accepted. Now you got to go do the field work. So how is scheduling field crews getting around the fact that, people need time off, they have kids, they have a life outside of work, but the client also needs it now and you got to be out there. So how do you balance between, the health of your employees and the health of your clients? That's always a tough one.
if my wife was here, she would say, not well. He does not manage that well. Yeah, it can be very trying. You have clients that you like and they like you, and you want to continue to have that relationship with them, so you feel that you need to rush out there and take care of their needs. Sometimes, especially in the construction industry, you've provided a service, say on a Wednesday, and then all of a sudden they've encountered some issue on Friday, or there was a weather delay and you couldn't get out there, so now you need to get out there immediately because they have cranes waiting, or they have dirt coming, or concrete's being poured, or what have you. It can actually be very, very difficult to schedule those sorts of projects, to basically set your status as almost on call. You have the ability to show up, but you have to be upfront. I need 24 hours notice before I can show up. I'm really not sitting here with my feet up on the desk waiting for this phone to ring so I can come out and give you what you need. But I will always do my best to do so. As far as the clients that have reached out for mortgage surveys or transfer of title or site planning for additions or whatever, we're very mindful of our schedule with other clients. We also include a blurb in the proposal that we have ongoing construction projects that may delay your project, but you will be kept informed of any scheduling conflicts or deviations from what you have agreed to in this proposal. But we do try to make sure that we give them that full week. We can do your project the week of, and make sure that we are there at least to do preliminary work the week of, so they know that we've been on site. As far as employees, yes, both my employees have kids. They're both married to teachers. The school year is the schedule is extremely flexible. They are involved with their schools. They are very mindful of their spouses' schedules as well. And like I said, it is a completely different environment than what I came up in, and I have adjusted accordingly. So I make sure that if they need time off, they get the time off. They're very respectful about giving me a heads up when they do need time off, and not gluttonous about it. So if they're it just so happens that I have the ability to go to the field and do the drafting and the paperwork to the best of my ability. So it's not too disruptive when I do allow somebody to take, and I shouldn't even say allow somebody. They ask for it, I give it to them, and then I fill in where I fill that hole.
Mm-hmm.
So I will go to the field and take care of what the party chief is unable to that day, or draft up what my office manager is unable to that day. So that I just being extremely flexible is how I maintain that schedule.
You mentioned adjusting over time, and you mentioned that you now have an accountant that handles aspects of your payroll.
Yes.
As your business grew, what do you think the most important things were for you to be personally involved in? And what things do you think you benefited from delegating to other professionals?
I actually think that is ongoing as far as what else I need to delegate. When I hired my second employee, he was meant to just be a drafts person. However, he has demonstrated skills that cross over into spreadsheets, um, cross over into streamlining the input and output of reports and putting together the proposals. So he quickly became office manager, handling the phone calls, doing the lion's share of the drafting. If I was at 100% when I first started of all the drafting, I'm probably at 45% of the drafting now. He takes care of all that. My party chief, and I'll refer to as, we have two crews. We have two sets of equipment. We all go in the opposite directions. Everything's robotic and GPS these days. So my party chief is one crew. I'm another crew. He's able to go to the field and take care of a 100-acre boundary down to 100 by 100 title survey. Getting my payroll over to the accountant, that was more of my accountant's suggestion, because they were very helpful in their suggestion that they take over the payroll portion, because, as it was pointed out to me by them, I am very good at land surveying. I am not very good at paperwork, because of the rate that you could pay yourself as, let's just, the rate of a survey crew going to the field earns a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
I am much better at billing myself out at that rate than I am sitting in this office trying to figure out all of the paperwork and then managing all the other things. So that is one of the other skills of business management, is to know what you cannot manage and do exactly what you said. Delegate to somebody else that has that professional capacity to do so, or the technical skill to take it on, and do it a lot more efficiently than you could. Just like anything at your house, working on it yourself, you may save money that's coming directly out of your pocket if you do some sort of carpentry project at your house, but it may take you 2 weeks to do it. The carpenter who gets hired may take 3 hours to do it. So I'm very mindful of what I can and cannot do, and I'm getting better at acknowledging that I can't do it and letting somebody else do it.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, you kind of got to be the jack of all trade, but you can't do everything all at once. And
Right.
Your time is better spent doing other things, and you might need to pay somebody to do those other things. It would just be more profitable in order to pay somebody to do them than to do them yourself.
Absolutely.
So you got the jobs, you got them all done. Can you talk about what it's like to go to planning board meetings and building department meetings? After you got the survey all done, now you have to go and do these other things that are, you don't really ever think about after the job's done.
Yeah, another skill you sort of pick up on. Planning boards happen at after hours, so 7 p.m. You are at whichever town that you've done a project in, which will, knowing that you may have to do that, that will also factor into where you decide your limits of work will be, how far out you are willing to work. Which doesn't mean you can't go out and say do a cell tower out in Jamestown, because you may not ever have to go to a planning board. They're not doing anything. That's not part of what you do. But if you're going to subdivide somebody's property, you will have to go to the planning board and present on behalf of the client, or most likely the client will want you to be there to speak about anything that they're unable to. So you're going to be speaking about the technical side of what it is you're going to be doing to this property and what you encountered, and basically describing to people on the planning board what it is this map says. So it definitely is a skill for presentation, oration. You're going to be standing up in front of 6 people on a panel, quite possibly a hostile public that have showed up to speak out against your project. So your props go a long way as well. Some municipalities will have a laptop that's projecting onto a screen, and you can use a laser pointer and point out what you're doing. Sometimes you have an easel and you're pointing to what you're doing. Know the municipality that you're presenting to, and know their technological capabilities. Whether it's you're going to have 2 tape recorders sitting on a desk that they're just going to hit record on, so you're speaking to the public record that way, or are you standing up at the podium with a microphone? How is it you're supposed to address? Because if you've been in the field all day, make sure you get back to the house so you can show up not in fluorescent, and quite possibly at least a nice button shirt or tie or whatever. Just know that you are going to be presenting to the public, and you're going to be the face of the professional that they expect to be presenting to them.
Yeah, you're also representing surveying as a whole, so you want to make sure you're very professional as you can be, because that's probably a lot of interaction with the public, and sometimes that's the only interaction with the public that surveyors really kind of get.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So another thing that you don't always really think of, but what happens, how do you upkeep your equipment? What happens if things break? Who pays for that?
You pay for it unless something has happened to it on a job site, or that's just out of your control. Depending on what sort of projects you're taking on, you have to have a certain level of insurance anyways. So you're going to have your equipment insured, but there is the yearly calibration of your total station. Some projects that you're on will require you to present a letter that says this got calibrated on this particular day and it has been certified by this individual. So you'll have that piece of paper that says this instrument is good to go. On that same project, you may be required to have not just one working set of equipment, but a spare set of working equipment in case this one goes down, because a high rise or any sort of construction project that's involving cranes and concrete, those sorts of things waiting on the surveyor become very expensive to the contractor, and they will move on and you will get a reputation. So it is paramount to make sure that If you are going to purport to provide a certain level of expertise to a particular company, you're going to be required to have a set of equipment that is also going to be able to provide that to that client. So having all of your instruments and your GPS, everything up to date, calibrated, certified, ready to go is at the forefront of any one of those projects. In the case that a vehicle goes down, you have to have a plan for that too. Company the size of mine, you may end up going with just a rental vehicle, transferring everything out of one vehicle into that rental and then continuing on. You may be with a larger company that has a spare truck in the event that another one goes down. Those are expenses that have to be factored in as well. How much is it going to cost to keep a truck in one of those parking spots just in case that truck goes down?
Mm-hmm.
That is definitely something to always think about.
Bills don't stop coming.
You know, the saying is, you expect the best but plan for the worst. That's probably good advice. Yeah, things are going to go great, but just in case, we got that truck.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case.
Yeah, so of all the things that we've talked about here today, I mean, how often do you think about these things? Do you think about them, monthly or weekly or daily? I mean, these are things that are constantly on your mind, I imagine, right?
These are things, yes. These are things that are always on my mind. What if the equipment goes down? What if there's a downturn in the economy? What if the project that I'm working on, that prime doesn't have the capital to pay me, or gets into some sort of financial struggle where the site actually shuts down? What if there's a pandemic and you can't get on site, or there's a shortage of hubs or lath or nails or flagging of the whiskers that go on the spikes? You can't. The county clerk is closed.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go down and get records because this particular county clerk is not online.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can attest that from the time I wake up until the time I finish my first cup of coffee in the morning, that's the time frame that I'm not thinking about all the stresses of the day. But as soon as I pull into this parking lot and the doorknob opens and the shop bell rings announcing that the door is open, the treadmill's at full speed. It's just a go, and then it does not shut down until 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. If there's a planning board, 8, 9 o'clock at night. So yes, these are the sorts of things that are always on my mind.
That sounds stressful. Is there anything you do to actively try to mitigate that stress?
I cuss a lot. When I'm in the field, it is less stressful. In the office, meeting client expectations, juggling several different projects at the same time is very stressful. When I go to somebody else's office and I see how clean their desk is, I will let them know I have desk envy. I have folders all over the desk because I could be in the middle of something and somebody just calls and says, hey, what's this dimension? Hey, what's this? Hey, on this particular project you surveyed 5 years ago, it's this. There is definitely this juggling act of whether or not you stop what you're doing and answer that person's question, or be firm with them and say, I'm going to write this down and I will get back to you later. It is something that I struggle with, definitely. I am not stress-free at all. It it seems to have gotten worse, and I'm trying to manage it. I go to the YMCA. I run. I sit in the sauna. I try to shut my brain off from surveying, but at the present time, and backtracking probably for 5 years, I have been working 6-7 days a week, making sure that I am providing for my employees, and it it definitely is something. That's the part of the business management that I haven't done a great job of, which is taking time to manage myself and my personal time. That's why I'm mentioning how important personal time is, because I just think I got it wrong. I didn't do it properly, and I'm trying to fix that, because I can, under my own guidelines, I am well established. I should not be working 6 or 7 days a week. It just that's how busy the schedule is. That's how much work I've taken on, and it is my own doing by taking on these projects. And it is something that I've tried to rectify. But even though we were pretty solid as far as workload through the pandemic, there seems to be this period of post-pandemic that I'm still reeling from, using up any sort of cushion that I had to make sure that everybody continued to get paid, because of the example that I used of a project getting shut down. Project got shut down, and they're entering into litigation to get paid. After they get paid, per the contract, I will get paid. I have, as a small business owner, that is very frustrating, but those are the terms, and that is for another cuss section. Yes, I will let the expletives fly when I think about the terms of some of these contracts.
Yeah, so you kind of touched about some stuff about the not so great things about owning a business, but let's kind of end on a happy note. I mean, what do you love about this business? What do you enjoy most about owning your own business?
I like the fact that I get to call it my own. I get to step back and say that I did build this, and I did figure it out. Kind of, and not 100% on my own. There were people along the way that I used as great landmarks, guideposts, street signs. Those people, and let's be honest, you can learn a lot from some of those people, and some of the most valuable lessons are how not to be. So that wasn't successful, don't do that. So I will take every one of those lessons and incorporate that into how I do things. But the most joy I get from owning my own business is the sheer fact that I own my own business. And I know that, it almost becomes cliche with the, small business owner is the backbone of the economy, which that could be the contributing factor to the pain in my back, carrying all of that. But there is something to be said about having done it, having been successful. And granted, these are my own definition of what's success. You make it 3 years, you consider yourself successful. Well, it's been 10 years. I'm still going. I have very happy employees. At times that they've been enjoying a better job than I have, because they get to go home at 5, and then they're able to turn off surveying at 5 o'clock. I just don't have that luxury. but that's also something I enjoy about it. The idea that it is difficult to own your own business and manage it and be successful. That is something that I did, and that does feel good. That is that that is something that I can definitely look back on and say, well, I was able to own my own business and be successful about it. So I do have that going for me.
Yeah. So obviously your responsibilities don't really stop with just surveying. Do you feel that community outreach is important at all? Do you reach out, and do you feel obligated to help other surveyors or other people that you?
Yeah, there is a certain amount of obligation as a professional to promote your own profession and to to let another professional not be successful, or to not offer them some sort of advice when they've reached out to you. Um, that seems a bit disingenuous and counter to um, the 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 idea about being a professional and then promoting your own profession. But outreach, I do a veteran outreach program called Soldiers to Surveyors, where I go to Fort Drum and I table 4 nice apples representing Bethlehem Land Surveying as the company, but as the organization, I am flying the banner of nice apples, and I am promoting land surveying in general to basically anybody who will receive that as some sort of possibility of future employment for them. The My own military background, when I got out, I got lucky. I fell into surveying. My roommate's brother worked at a survey company, and he just happened to ask me one day if I wanted to be, you want to be a surveyor, and not knowing anything about it. It was working outside. I didn't want to work where I was, so I took a chance. And once I got there, I realized that everything that I was trained in the military for, maps, compasses, and coordinates, all of that easily transferred, made it a nice transition into surveying. And I loved it. And I had a background in drafting, so that made it easy to be outside and then inside. So now those are the people that I'm targeting at Fort Drum, are the people that use maps, compasses, and coordinates, and letting them know that land surveying is a profession worth pursuing. But it's also, if they're anything like me, at least have that opportunity to decide whether or not that's not for you. But it's my job to present that as a door to that they can choose to walk through or not. I'm not pulling them through the door, but I'm going to present them with another option, and I think it can be a profitable one for them. It can be fruitful and quite enjoyable, because I know what they're doing based on what I did. So I know that this is is an excellent career. It's an easy transition, and I know that as a profession, we're all looking for the next surveyors to be coming on board. How do we fill the ranks? How do we bring on the professionals and keep on promoting land surveying as a profession? And this is my way of giving back, and I think it's important for people to do that. Yeah,
For sure. Is there anything else?
If you could give one piece of advice to someone starting their own business, what would it be?
everything costs money. Your time to do something, your equipment that goes in the truck, whether it be a can of paint, roll of flagging, the total station, all of it costs money, and it can be very lucrative, both emotionally and along the business lines to factor all of that in. How much money do you need to run your business, manage your business, and manage yourself all at the same time? That is something that had I had the opportunity to plan for, I would have done differently. I would have had a larger cushion. I would have taken the time off, used my weekends just like if I was working at a regular company. 5 o'clock on a Friday, I'm not surveying until Monday at 7 o'clock. That's something that I have not done since 2012, and that's my biggest point to make is everything costs money, and don't forget to take care of yourself. Definitely, family time. Don't get caught up in some of the things that I have by taking on too much, or just not thinking about your time off in the same way that you used to. So you can still be successful and have Saturdays and Sundays off. It is completely possible.
Well, thank you very much, and we appreciate it. And I hope you guys all enjoyed this this video from the YP committee, and hopefully you guys can reach out to us or Mr. Peterson here, and everything will be great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.